Baalbek stones are so massive, engineers today say it's impossible. So if humans couldn't build this, then who did? Stay with me, because what you're about to see will rewrite everything you know about ancient history. You take your first step onto the sun-warmed platform, and immediately your senses start arguing with your brain. The stones beneath your feet feel too big, too smooth, too precisely placed to belong to any ancient world you've ever imagined. You pause, letting the breeze slip across your face, and the late afternoon light glints off a surface so perfectly cut it almost feels modern. For a moment you forget to breathe. It's like walking into a museum exhibit where all the labels have been intentionally removed, and you're left alone to guess what made these impossible giants. And as you tilt your head to the side, squinting in that sleepy, half-curious way, one thought keeps whispering through your mind. There's no way humans did this with chisels and rope, right? You trudge a little farther, your steps echoing gently, and suddenly the scale hits you. One trilithon block towers beside you, longer than a city bus and heavier than 50 tanks stacked together. Engineers today joke that even modern machinery would throw a tantrum over these things, and you can almost picture a crane operator staring at this block, quietly packing his lunch and going home. A mainstream historical fact drifts into your thoughts. The Romans built some of the most impressive stone structures in the world, yet their biggest standard block is barely half the weight of the smallest monster here. You run your fingers across the ancient seam where two stones meet so tightly that even a business card wouldn't slip through. Gentle sarcasm tickles your voice as you whisper to yourself, "Yep, totally normal. Just your average prehistoric Lego set." You move along the surface, feeling the soft vibration of the earth beneath you. Somewhere deep down, you sense layers, literal layers, older than anything the Romans ever touched. Historians still debate whether the megalithic foundation predates even the earliest civilizations of the Levant. And the idea starts pulling you deeper. You imagine time stacked like sediment, Roman temples on top, Hellenistic remnants below, and then further down, something older, stranger, quieter, something no one fully agrees on. The air smells faintly of dust and pine resin, and you breathe it in, almost tasting the thousands of years pressed into this place. Then you reach the platform's edge where the view spills out across the valley. The mountains cradle Baalbek like a secret they haven't decided whether to share. A quirky little fringe tidbit floats into your mind. Some early Arab traditions claimed these stones were set in place by the giants who roamed the earth before the Great Flood. You picture a massive figure picking up one of these blocks the way you might lift a stubborn cat, and you chuckle, imagining the giant muttering, "Why is this one so heavy?" before casually placing it down. But the laughter fades quickly as you realize something unsettling. No matter how wild those old stories sound, they exist because real people looked at these stones and felt the same confusion you're feeling right now. You step back, looking for tool marks, anything that would reassure you that humans were indeed responsible. Chisel strokes, quarry scratches, forgotten ramps, but nothing lines up. Instead, you find surfaces that look almost machined, edges that refuse to crumble, and corners too perfect to blame on guesswork. You pause again, your breath slowing, feeling the moment stretch into something almost ASMR soft. A sleepy hum of thought settles in. If humans built this, they were humans who knew something we don't, something we lost. Then the oldest clue of all rises gently in your awareness. Baalbek's first builders, whoever they were, aren't remembered in any official record. No clay tablets, no royal decrees, not even a signature carved in stone. It's as if the earliest chapter of Baalbek was written by hands that didn't care about being remembered. You feel the weight of that silence pressing lightly against your chest, guiding you forward, urging you to keep following the faint trail they left behind. And as you step toward the next cluster of ruins, the forgotten builders seem to stir, just faintly, like a memory brushing the edge of your thoughts, nudging you deeper into the mystery waiting beneath the dust.
You drift forward across the ancient stones, your footsteps soft, almost hesitant, as if you're walking into someone else's unfinished sentence. No restart, no new beginning, just the same breath rolling onward as the ruins shift around you. The columns ahead rise into the sky like frozen thunderbolts, and the closer you get, the more you feel that strange blend of awe and sleepy disbelief pooling at the edges of your mind. You blink slowly, letting the warm Lebanese sun settle across your eyelids, and then you imagine the moment the Romans first arrived here. You picture seasoned engineers, men who prided themselves on conquering continents, staring upward at a platform they absolutely did not build, wondering whether they should admit it or just awkwardly look away. A gentle smirk curls through your voice. Imagine being Rome and deciding, hey, let's just build on top of this thing and pretend we totally meant to. A mainstream historical fact tags along. Although Rome constructed the massive temple of Jupiter here, they never claimed the foundation. Not once. Not in any inscription. Not in any historical record. When they finally wrote about Baalbek, they described it as an ancient place of the gods, which is basically ancient speak for, we found this here, don't ask questions. Historians still argue whether the Romans truly didn't know who built the platform or if they just didn't want to know. And honestly, you can't blame them. When you're Rome, the last thing you want to admit is, yeah, somebody did this thousands of years before us, and better. You reach one of the surviving temple steps, letting your hand drift across its weathered edge. The stone hums under your touch, warm and familiar, despite its impossible nature. You lean in, tracing a seam where a Roman block meets the older megalith beneath it. The contrast is almost embarrassing. The Roman blocks look huge until you compare them to the megastones below, which casually weigh 5, 10, even 20 times more. It's like stacking a sedan on top of a cruise ship and calling it structural symmetry. You chuckle, your voice melting into a soft ASMR cadence. Yep, the Romans were incredibly advanced, just not that advanced. Then you crouch down, letting your eyes follow a line so straight it feels like it was drawn with a laser. The joint between the megaliths is barely visible, as if the stones themselves are whispering secrets through the hairline gap. You imagine an ancient builder stepping back, admiring the flawless alignment and muttering, "Close enough," even though it's more precise than some modern skyscraper foundations. You tilt your head, searching for the usual suspect, wedge marks, percussion scars, tool impressions. But the surfaces are too clean, too confident, too deliberate. You run your fingers across the stone and feel a slight dip, maybe erosion, maybe something else, before breathing out slowly, sleepily. A fringe tidbit drifts up like a bubble in your thoughts. A few early European travelers swear these stones rang when tapped, as if they held some acoustic secret or strange density. You straighten slowly, whispering, "Great, now the rocks are singing. Totally normal." You keep walking, and the myths begin drifting in from the edges of memory, tales you've heard but never truly listened to. The locals once believed this place was built by skylords, beings who descended in storms and hammered thunder into stone. Some stories say Baal himself, god of storms, lightning, and mountain winds, landed here to survey his domain. Others claim the giants built it, their footprints lingering in the soil long after their stories turned to legends. Historians still debate whether these myths were symbolic or whether they preserved some distant echo of earlier cultures remembering something real. You hear the faint hum of ancient voices, calling this place the Landing, long before the Greeks renamed it Heliopolis, City of the Sun. You slip between two fallen columns, the shadows cooling the air around you. A bird lands briefly on one of the blocks, cocking its head as if deciding whether to trust you with the truth. You smile softly. Don't worry, I'm just trying to figure out who built your gigantic living room. The bird hops away, apparently uninterested in megalithic engineering debates. And you continue on, feeling the lines blur between history, myth, and the quiet intuition humming in your chest. Every step deepens the mystery. The Romans came here, claimed the glory of the temples, but left the foundation untouched, like they knew it belonged to someone else, someone older, someone stranger. And the legends, they're not fading. They're getting louder, closer, pressing gently at your mind as if they're ready to unfold. You breathe in, slow and steady. The air tastes like dust and ancient wonder, and the story continues pulling you in.
You move deeper into the ruins, and the sunlight shifts just enough to cast long, calm shadows across the platform. Shadows that stretch like questions you're finally ready to ask out loud. But instead of speaking, you let your breath fall into that soft, almost sleepy rhythm again. The kind where your thoughts glide instead of jump, where everything feels heavier, but also clearer. The stones ahead look even grander from this angle, as if they've been waiting for you to stand right here in this exact spot to notice something essential. You pause, your shoulders relax, and your eyes narrow just slightly, because now the real puzzle begins. You try the mainstream explanations first, the ones every documentary throws at you. Ramps, rollers, sledges, thousands of workers tugging ropes with heroic determination. You picture a swarm of laborers trying to drag an 800-ton stone across uneven ground, and a sleepy, sarcastic chuckle escapes you. "Sure," you whisper, "and I'll bench press a bus right after lunch." Engineers today run the numbers, and nearly every theory collapses under the stone's weight. Literally. Dirt ramps tall enough would be bigger than the pyramids. Wooden rollers would shatter like breadsticks, and sledges? You'd need enough lubrication to turn the entire region into an ancient slip-and-slide. You breathe out slowly, letting the quiet settle. A mainstream fact rises through the haze. Archaeologists agree the Romans transported heavy blocks, but nowhere close to these sizes. Their record-breaking monoliths rarely exceed 300 tons. Baalbek dwarfs that casually, like a strongman show that forgot to end. Historians still argue whether some unknown engineering trick was lost to time, or whether the builders had access to something beyond our current imagination. You keep walking until the landscape opens into a wide, dusty clearing. And then you see it, the quarry, the birthplace of the giants. The stone of the pregnant woman lies before you like a beached titan, half carved, half finished, still fused to the earth. Sunlight paints its flat surface gold, and for a moment the world feels unusually quiet, as if the block itself remembers a time before the noise of history. You step closer, measuring it with your eyes. 90 feet long, over 1,000 tons, larger than any single stone in the temples above. And this one was never moved, never lifted, never positioned. You tilt your head and mumble, "So the block builders looked at this and thought, nah, too small, let's make an even bigger one." A fringe tidbit drifts back. One traveler centuries ago claimed the block was so perfectly balanced in the quarry that a single child could rock it gently back and forth. You blink slowly. 1,000-ton seesaw, you whisper. Cute. You circle around the stone, letting your fingers brush its edge. The surface is smooth in some places, rough in others, like the workers carved it with confidence until something interrupted them, something abrupt, something permanent. And as the wind picks up, you notice another unfinished block farther down the slope, and another, each one bigger than the last, as if someone was experimenting, scaling up, pushing limits, then suddenly stopped. You straighten slowly, letting the idea settle like dust in your thoughts.
Whoever started this project wasn't just lifting stones, they were preparing for something monumental, something world-shaping. You feel the weight of that idea sink deeper as you begin tracing the path the finished blocks should have taken, down the hill, across uneven land, and up onto the temple platform. But the terrain doesn't cooperate. The incline is wrong. The angles are impossible. Even dragging one of these blocks a few feet would take fantasy-level engineering. And yet, the largest stones at the temple aren't just moved, they're placed with surgical precision. You glance toward the distant mountains, and a soft breeze brushes your cheek, carrying that subtle invitation to look beyond Baalbek. You follow the hint instinctively, letting your mind drift across the world. Peru, Egypt, Turkey, Japan. Suddenly you notice a pattern forming like a constellation aligning for the first time. Cyclopean walls in Cusco with joints that puzzle masons today. Polygonal blocks in Sacsayhuaman that fit together like 3D puzzles carved by someone who really hated straight lines. The Yanaguni Monument under the sea with steps so clean they look laser-cut. Göbekli Tepe, older than agriculture, older than pottery, appearing suddenly like a cheat code in human history. Different cultures, different continents, different eras, but the same impossible fingerprints. You whisper softly, so it wasn't just Baalbek, and the thought tingles at the base of your neck. Each site feels like a node on a forgotten map, a network built by people or something that understood stone in ways we still don't. Historians still argue whether these alignments are coincidence or evidence of shared ancient knowledge. You inhale slowly, the air thickening with a sense of continuity you can't quite explain. You step away from the massive quarry stone, feeling the ground tilt slightly under your feet, not physically, but in that mental way where your understanding of history begins to wobble. You look back one more time at the unfinished giants, imagining craftsmen who didn't just shape rock, but mastered it. And suddenly, the idea doesn't feel fringe anymore. It feels inevitable.